What's good, YouTube? Sensational Ssr here, and I'm back with another Tom Clancy's The Division Vendor Reset video. We're here for July 17th, 2020's Vendor Reset. So let's get right into this to see what we got good for this week. Okay, so for our first gear items, you're going to head over to Camp Hudson. Here, the weapons vendor has a Socom Mk20 Ssr with a gear score of 268. It has 143% headshot damage, and the talents it has is fierce, ferocious, and meticulous. For our next gear items, we're still at Camp Hudson, and here the gear vendor has a prototype performance mod with 7.50% ballistic shield health. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to the base operations. Here the Dark Zone gear vendor has a pro red dot sight with 18% crit hit damage, 2% accuracy, and 6% headshot damage. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the gear vendor, and here we got an operator vest with the talent Vigorous on there. It has a gear score of 271. The armor is 1,923. Its roll for firearms 1,146, and the attributes this has is skill haste, exotic damage resilience, and increased kill XP. Also here we got a prototype performance mod with 3.50% seeker mine damage. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the advanced weaponry vendor, and here we got a classic AK-47 with a gear score of 258. It has 19% enemy armor damage, and the talents this has is swift, destructive, and unforgiving. Also here we got a Paratrooper Svd with a gear score of 262. It has 142% headshot damage, and the talents it has is predatory, ferocious, and disciplined. Also here we got an extended magazine with 111% magazine size, 4.50% reload speed, and 2.50% crit hit chance. Also here we got a mega rifle suppressor with 17% headshot damage, 2.50% stability, and 4% crit hit damage. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the special equipment vendor, and here we got a Liberator with a gear score of 267. It has 21% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is predatory, fierce, and brutal. Also here we got a Historian with a gear score of 268. It has 154% headshot damage, and the talents it has is dominant, vicious, and Historian repeats. Also here we got a SASG-12 with a gear score of 271. It has 324.50% stagger, and the talents it has is destructive, fierce, and deadly. Also here we got an M700 Tactical with a gear score of 270. It has 158% headshot damage, and the talents it has is talented, disciplined, and elevated. Also here we got a tactical M249 Parrot with a gear score of 275. It has 20% damage to targets out of cover, and the talent it has is destructive, skilled, and competent. Also here we got a Spec Ops Mask with the talent Tenacious on there. It has a gear score of 279. The armor is 956. Its roll for firearms 1,214. And the attributes this has is all resistance and blind death resistance. Also here we got a Gunslinger Vest with the talent Reckless on there. It has a gear score of 276. The armor is 1,923. Its roll for firearms 1,163. And the attributes this has is all resistance, skill haste, and increased kill XP. Also here we got a tactical pack with the talent Specialized on there. It has a gear score of 272. The armor is 1,275. Its roll for electronics 1,138. And the attributes this has is skill power and disrupt resistance. Also here we got a Tyrant Suppressor with 7.50% crit hit chance, 5.50% headshot damage, and 5% optimal range. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the special blueprints vendor, and here we got a classic RPK-74 blueprint with a gear score of 256. We also got an electronics knee pad blueprint with a gear score of 256. We also got some stamina knee pad blueprint with a gear score of 256. And we also got a high velocity magazine blueprint with a power level 34. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to the cavern. Here the gear vendor has a prototype performance mod with 5.50% first aid ally heal. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to Camp Clinton. Here the special equipment vendor has a Historian with a gear score of 277. It has 151% headshot damage. The talents this has is swift, brutal, and Historian repeats. Also here we got a double barrel shotgun with a gear score of 272. It has 321.50% stagger, and the talents this has is responsive, dominant, and vicious. Also here we got a military Mk46 with a gear score of 266. It has 19% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents this has is commanding, competent, and ferocious. Also here we got a tactical mask with the talent Tenacious on there. It has a gear score of 277. The armor is 999. Its roll for stamina 1,169, and the attributes this has is all resistance and blind death resistance. Also here we got a Spec Ops pack with the talent Inventive on there. It has a gear score of 267. The armor is 1,994. Its roll for firearms 1,142, and the attributes this has is health and burn resistance. Also here we got a heavy magazine spring with 4% crit hit damage, 3% crit hit chance, and 9.40% rate of fire. For our next gear items, we're still at Camp Clinton. Head over to the special blueprints vendor. In here, we got a military M9 blueprint with a gear score of 256. We also got an electronics knee pad blueprint with a gear score of 256. We also got a firearms knee pad blueprint with a gear score of 256. We also got a holographic sight tan blueprint with a power level 34. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Madison's stand. Here the Gearbender has a Gunslinger Vest with the talent Vigorous on there. It has a gear score of 279. The armor is 1,970. It's roll for a stamina of 1,260. And the attributes this has is enemy armor damage, health on kill, and ammo capacity. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the last call. Here the weapons vendor has a police UMP45 with a gear score of 282. It has 22.50% crit hit chance. And the talents this has is responsive, commanding, and ambusher. And also here we got a small red grip with 19% crit hit damage, 4% optimal range, and 3% stability. I don't think I've ever seen a mod with 3% stability, so that's pretty rare. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the ward. Here the Gearbender has a Spec Ops Armor with the talent Rapid on there. It has a gear score of 272. The armor is 1,784. It's roll for firearms 1,232. And the attributes this has is exotic damage resilience, enemy armor damage, and ammo capacity. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the firewall. Here the Gearbender has a prototype stamina mod with 266 stamina and 3,098 health. For our next gear items, you want to head to West 39th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has an MG5 with a gear score of 266. It has 21% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents this has is accurate, destructive, and vicious. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 42nd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a prototype stamina mod with 255 stamina and 3,309 skill power. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 46th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a tactical pack with the talent Specialized on there. It has a gear score of 276. The armor is 1,224. It's roll for electronics 1,210. And the attributes this has is stability and bleed resistance. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 53rd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a prototype performance mod with 3.50% sticky bomb damage. For our next gear items, you want to head over to East 61st Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone weapon mod vendor has a heavy magazine spring with 4.50% reload speed, 4% crit hit damage, and 10.60% rate of fire. And also here we got a 5.52 hollow sight with 7.50% crit hit chance, 4.50% optimal range, and 6% headshot damage. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to the Park Ave checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone weapons vendor has a MP7 with a gear score of 283. It has 22.50% crit hit chance, and the talents it has is destructive, sustained, and ferocious. Also here we got a lightweight M4 with a gear score of 274. It has 23% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is dominant, prepared, and competent. And also here we got a custom M44 with a gear score of 278. It has 164% headshot damage, and the talents it has is competent, unforgiving, and swift. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 42nd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a classic RPK-74 with a gear score of 275. It has 21% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents it has is deadly, dominant, and brutal. Also here we got an Operator Mask with the talent refreshed on there. It has a gear score of 265. The armor is 942. It's roll for electronics 1,144. And the attributes this has is exotic damage resilience and disorienting resistance. And also here we got a prototype firearms mod with 257 firearms and 3,016 skill power. For our next gear items, we want to head over to East 40th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a small grip with 19% crit hit damage, 2.50% stability, and 4.50% reload speed. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 31st Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a black market M60 E6 with a gear score of 283. It has 22% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents it has is prepared, fierce, and dominant. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to the 5th Ave checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has an SR7 suppressor with 19% crit hit damage, 4.50% optimal range, and 2% accuracy. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ2 safe room. Here the Dark Zone Gearbender has a Spec Ops Armor with the talent Rapid on there. It has a gear score of 266. The armor is 1,753. Its roll for firearms 1,203. And the attributes this has is enemy armor damage, health, and ammo capacity. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ3 safe room. Here the Dark Zone weapons vendor has a military P416 with a gear score of 271. It has 21% enemy armor damage, and the talents this has is prepared, brutal, and swift. And also here we got a military RPK-74M with a gear score of 275. It has 19% damage to targets out of cover. And the talents this has is adept, fierce, and talented. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ5 Safe Room. Here, the Dark Zone Weapon Mod vendor has an Omega Rifle Suppressor with 18.50% headshot damage, 4.50% optimal range, and 2.50% crit hit chance. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ8 Safe Room. Here, the Dark Zone Gearbender has a Tactical Vest with the Talent Reckless on there. It has a gear score of 263. The armor is 1,730. Its roll for electronics 1,149. And the attributes it has is health on kill, enemy armor damage, and increased kill XP. And also here we got a Spec Ops pack with the Talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 268. The armor is 1,255. Its roll for stamina 1,140. And the attributes it has is crit damage and burn resistance. Alright everybody, that's it for our Tom Clancy's The Division vendor reset video for July 17, 2020's vendor reset. Hope everybody who tuned into it found something that they needed. Smash on that like and sub button if you hadn't. I appreciate that support, y'all, and I will see y'all with the next one. Take care. Peace.